It's 10:10 local. There it is. See if anybody's up and about tonight. It's getting kind of late, but there are people who stay up late. We are officially out of the construction zone, so I can pick it back up again. Oops. 23.6. Oh, there's the Beatles poster, which I drive by on a semi-regular basis. No idea why they have that there. Samantha Russell. Hey, I haven't seen you on here in a while. Yeah, you used to come on here. What you doing on this Saturday night? So does everybody just call you Sam, or do you go by the full Samantha? I got a topic, a weird topic for right now is Hong Kong. And again, you're out here driving around and weird thoughts. Love your video. Thank you. Weird thoughts pass through your brain when you're driving around. Many years ago, I worked with a guy who grew up in Hong Kong, of all places. And he was there when it officially got turned over in 1996 with mainland China. Rylan. My name is Rylan. Why does it say Samantha? That could be confusing. But he lived in Hong Kong, and he was there in the 80s and 90s and 96 when the Chinese government, the communist government took over. He was there to watch that, and there was this big sales pitch about, it was going to be, one country with two systems and blah, 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 blah. And he said, yeah, it was a dumpster fire. They came in and cracked down. That's why Hong Kong has since fallen off the face of the earth, and nobody's paying any attention to it anymore because it got absorbed into the communist system and it's lost all its luster. I'm on my mom's phone. Aha! That makes sense. Use the mom's phone. Don't let the mom catch you doing that. Say hi to mom, by the way. But something he told me one day, the guy spoke way better English than I spoke Chinese. The unknown, dun dun dun. How you doing? We are southbound, by the way, on I-57 in southern Illinois. Still in Illinois, still trying to get out of this state, heading towards Memphis. I have been driving for a long time, and I'm still here. Anyway, he was living in Hong Kong, and somebody opened a sports bar. This is back in the late 80s. And brought in those big screen, good deal. Where are you from, Mr. Unknown? Bought in a big screen TV, and they were showing football. And this guy would start, he had this way where he would stare, he'd kind of look at the wall, high on the wall, open his mouth and stare. And he goes, so there's football on the screen. There's 250 people in this sports bar. staring up at this screen, and he would do his facial expression. He goes, "Oh, South Africa. No kidding. I am eating. Okay, that's cool." He's staring up at the screen. He goes, 250 Chinese guys, none have ever seen football before, have no idea what they're watching on the screen. He goes, and then you get to watch a 250-person discussion trying to figure out how football is played. And they're mixing the numbers on the uniforms with the yardage markers on the field and the numbers on the screen, 2nd and 4, 3rd and 2. Okay, you have to throw the ball to some guy in same color uniform that has a 7 on it. No, you can throw it to a guy with a 4, but it has to be past the number 50. And he would start describing all the combinations of ideas of what they were thinking how football was played. God, I wish I had a recording of that, because that was so freaking funny when he did it. No, he has to hand the ball to a guy that's got a 0 on his jersey. Jeez. The unknown. Where am I going? Well, ultimately, I took off from the town of Whitehall in Michigan, which is up above Grand Rapids, right on the water of Lake Michigan, and I have a 1,000-pound crate in here that I am taking to Laredo, Texas. The overall distance is something like 1,550 miles. And, of course, I couldn't pick it up until 3 o'clock in the afternoon because they weren't ready yet. So I am going as far as humanly possible tonight until I can't go anymore. That's why I'm on here. And then I'm going to end up sleeping, and I have to have it there by 7 o'clock in the morning on Monday. You're in South Africa. No kidding. That is kind of cool. And Ryland, where are you located, by the way, if you're still there? So last time Samantha Russell was on here, that was still you then, correct? Yeah, Laredo, Texas is on the Mexican border. This is one of the big port towns where they ship stuff in and out. It's fairly easy to get a load going down there. It is almost impossible to get a load out for some reason. So my plan is to go drop, turn around, and drive home because I live by Houston. And I'll be off for a week or so. I've been out here for 5 weeks. I'm tired. Oh, and I got to get my van worked on too. I've got some suspension stuff. I got my the rubber bushings are failing miserably, and they're starting to make noise. So I got to get that worked on. Yeah, Interstate 57, southbound, Illinois, getting pretty close to the Kentucky border. I hope. Seems like I've been in Illinois for a long time. Uh-oh, the goblin. And I had a guy, an aircraft mechanic I used to work with, and he got hired on 5 nights, that's long. 5 weeks. I've been out on the road for 5 weeks. The mechanic I used to work with, helicopter mechanic, and he was working a contract job in Afghanistan. And here back a few years ago when Brandon did that disastrous runaway withdrawal, he would go to work for like 2 months and come home for a month, and he was making bank. He was making really big money. But all his gear, his equipment, his tools were over there. And when they did that runaway retreat, he was at home. No, I've been out here 5 weeks. And he was at home in Texas when that happened, and he lost all his tools, like $60,000, $70,000 worth of tools. He got his money paid for, but he lost all his equipment. And a month later, he contacts me, and he sends me a photograph. And it's some dude, and it says, he's talking, and underneath it, it says, Head of Aviation Maintenance. That's his title. And he says that guy was the janitor at the airport. We had to teach him how to change a light bulb. And now he's the head of aviation maintenance. I guess he upgraded. Go for it, dude. But all the aircraft were destroyed in a way that they'll never fly again, so it doesn't not like a major issue. But he said that's pretty awesome upgrade from the janitor to the head of aviation maintenance. Okay, Goblin, I haven't seen you on here before. Where are you from? And if you're wondering, this is what's called expediting. This is truck driving in a box van. Same job, less rules. And a whole lot easier to get in. Alabama, right on. I went to flight school there in Fort Rucker back in the day. Alabama. I lived in Dothan, which is on the south side of Fort Rucker. Home for me is just north of Houston. I'm a Colorado kid, but I've been living in Texas now for 25 years. Man, I say it like that. Sounds like a long time. But I just got stopped for fuel here a few minutes ago because I ran it down to the gas light being on, and now we're back at it again. I was hoping to get out of Illinois because their gas is really expensive. Yeah, Fort Rucker, Mother Rucker. I was started out in flight school. They had them, I don't know how they do it now, but when I went through, I started out as class 8918 and I graduated 9001. I got double lung pneumonia when I was in flight school. If you miss 3 days of classes, they kick you backwards. So I got knocked backwards. You're getting paid to drive for 5 weeks. It's a weekly thing. You get paid by the mile usually, and it varies. It kind of varies each week. July was a really slow month. August was pretty good, and it's a moving target. A slow week, you gross $1,500 at this. On a big week, a busier week, you get like $2,500, $2,600. I have a bunk here in the van, so I can sleep in here. It just depends on the circumstances. Like I said, it's a moving target. But that's how this job works. You go out, you work for a while, and you go home for a while. I can go in and out of service as often as I want to. But traditionally July is a slow month. The 4th of July weekend has something to do with it. And then July is when all the car manufacturers retool their plants. And one of our biggest customers, our biggest customer is moving car parts around. And when they're retooling, they're not moving anything. So for the whole month of July, things just get soft. But then they got right back at it here in August and now into September. I've been busy. I'll have a load on board and I'll be halfway to a target 500 miles away, and they'll call me and say, okay, when you drop that, we got another one for you. So like I said, it's a moving target, and it depends. Expediting is weird because there's a lot of people in this line of work that do it really funny. There's guys that I know that say, I only want to drive in the states of Pennsylvania and Ohio. So they're pigeonholing themselves into an area. And then another guy will say, okay, I'll go wherever, but I don't want to drive more than 100 miles on a load, which is kind of ridiculous. You run into people like that. So there's a lot of variables in how much you could make. My thing is I just go wherever they need me to go, but keep me out of Florida. Because you can get a load to Florida, you cannot get a load out of Florida. Literally nothing. But the main corridor for cargo for this type of work is the northeast part of the country. From basically Wisconsin east and down to maybe Tennessee east, that kind of area. That's where all this stuff is. So when I have to get a load, there is cargo going to Texas, and that's how I start bugging the head office to get a load down there, and I'll drop, and I'll go home for a week or so. And I call them, they put me back on the board, and I'm at home. So if I don't get anything, I don't care because I'm at home. And then it may take a day or two, and then they'll say, okay, they're in Houston where you're sitting. They got something going back up to what's called the core, which is up in this area, the northeast. And then I'll jump in and get back up here and go back to work again. And I I sleep in the van. Occasionally, I'll get a hotel room, but for the most part, I sleep in the van. It's cheaper. I know one guy that stays in hotels every night. I don't know how he makes a living. You're spending all your money on hotel rooms. That guy from Hong Kong, I don't remember his name. He was a little chubby guy with glasses, but he had facial expressions and he had everything going on. I don't know why he popped into my head, but he was, how football is played. Oh yeah, and then he said they're all talking about, oh, I could do that, and they see these guys come off. Somebody gets hurt and they help them off the field. And you look at the trainer helping them off the field, and you realize that the player is 1.5 feet taller than the trainer, and then they go, oh, wait a minute, those guys are really big. Is it like one work and the other you can relax? Is it like one? You mean like two people on board, like a team? Because this van is not very big, and I can't imagine being stuck in here with another grown adult. This is kind of a solo thing. There are teams that do this, but there's not a lot of room in this van. I've got myself and my gear and a bunk that folds up, and in my passenger seat I have an air conditioning unit that I plug into my generator if I'm stuck someplace for time, and I air condition the van while I'm parked. I guess you could put two people in here, but you'd have to be real friendly with them, because this is like living in a phone booth. This is an insane amount of traffic to be on the road at this time of the night. You mean a week on, week off? I guess you could do that. I don't think you're going to make a dumb truckload of money. You get to make your own schedule. You call and you say, put me in service, and then you go, and then you say, put me out of service. When I was a pilot, that's what I did. I worked 7 on, 7 off. 12-hour days, 12 on, 12 off for a week, and took a week off. That's how I did this. If you live in a core area, you can do that, but I live kind of outside the core, so I got to kind of come up here and drive for a while, and then drive back. Yeah, but you make your own schedule. When I want to go on, my wife and I like to travel, and that's what we do, is we'll schedule the travel dates, and I'll just let them know, hey, by the way, on Tuesday I'm going out of service for 5 days, and they go, okay. It's my van, I can do whatever I want with it. 23 miles per gallon, not bad, not bad. Again, why are there this many cars on the road? Usually it's empty out here. If you want to try expediting, the easiest and cheapest way to get into it is to be a fleet driver, which means that the companies that you work for don't own any vehicles. Individuals own them, and if you're a fleet driver, that means you're driving somebody else's van, and you work a deal with them of how you split the revenue. They're paying for the vehicle, and you're running it, and there's a percentage, like 70-30, 65-35 split. No. These companies don't own. That's why they always talk about owner-operators. They don't want to take the risk. The company I drive for, they have an MC motor carrier number, and I operate underneath theirs. And the trade-off is, and this is something that drives me batty, you have to have 2 insurance policies, one loaded, one empty. So it's commercial rate insurance. I pay the empty, they pay the loaded. Mine's more expensive than it should be, and the loaded is like way more expensive, so they pay for this. Like now I'm loaded right this minute, and since they're paying the insurance, they also find me my loads. They have dispatchers who literally sit, they look like gamers, they sit behind a desk and they've got like 6 computer screens. They know the dimensions and the payload of this vehicle and any notes about what I will and won't do, which is a pretty short list for me. And they'll put like a 100-mile ring or a 75-mile ring around the van, and when something pops up, they'll see if it's a preload, something like a company that they just call them directly, already got a bid in, and they'll put me on it, and they take a percentage. The percentage moves around depending on what it is, where it's going, how big it is, and whatnot. So that's what they do, is they provide the loads, they provide the insurance where they get it cut, and I operate underneath them. The company I work for is big enough, and they're settled in enough into the industry, especially the automotive industry, that there's a lot of big auto manufacturers that just, they don't put stuff on a load board. They just contact our company directly, and they say, hey, you want to go, you got a vehicle in the area, we need this brought here. And this expediting is basically, if you're ordering regular orders of parts, they come in on a regular schedule. If there's a shortage of something, or something gets broken, or something gets misrouted and it's slowing them up, they call us, because we pick it up at the source and deliver it to the end user direct, versus picking it up and taking it to a warehouse and letting it sit there for a day or two until there's enough of it to load a truck to drive it to wherever and drop it in a warehouse, and then somebody has to come pick it up. So we're direct, like I said, straight to the source, from pick up to drop off. It doesn't get out of the van. So we're the hurry up guys. And the one story I told this before, I was in Indiana, and they paid for an overnight. It was a 1,000-mile run. I had to go to Kansas with an electric motor, weighed like 2,500 pounds, sitting on a pallet in the back, and I strapped it down, and it was a heavy-duty pallet, but 2,500 pounds is 2,500 pounds, and every time I hit a bump, I heard the pallet crack a little bit more. And I got to in Kansas, it was a Campbell soup plant. And when you deliver to anywhere, basically, you go around back, you look for the docks, and the loading docks, and the ramps and stuff. So I drive around back of this huge plant. I was supposed to be there no later than 11 o'clock, and I got there at like 6:15 in the morning. And there was a whole bunch of cars out back. You normally don't see that. And I walked in a room. I walked in the door towards the office, and there was 2 dozen people in there, and there was a big jabber-a-thon going on. And I stepped in, and everybody turned and looked at me. And I went, I have a electric motor. And it was like you pulled a fire alarm. Everybody was excited. I mean, they were like crazy excited. And they were running around, oh, get the forklifts, like, oh, geez. They were in a big hurry to get that motor off. And one of the honchos told me later, he goes, that electric motor is costing us, and I can't remember the number he said, but something to the effect of losing $13,000 an hour in production over that. That's why they were excited that I got there for like 3 or 4 hours early, and they wanted to get that thing up and running. Like, geez, that's a lot of soup. So they're just really old motors that never break down, and one of them, after decades of use, finally gave out. But that's what expediting is all about, is they need something they need now. I delivered a load of chips, computer chips. Remember about right when the pandemic kicked off, at that particular moment, I was flying tours up in the Grand Canyon, and that whole thing shut down, and I needed to turn some revenue, so I started expediting back then. That's back when computer chips, there was a big shortage of those for the car manufacturers. And there was a little company in Indiana, Pennsylvania, somewhere that was running 3 shifts, trying to produce them as fast as they could. And as soon as it got a pallet full, there was a whole bunch of vans in there. They'd throw a pallet, and they'd say go, and I raced out to Dallas-Fort Worth area to a Chevrolet plant. And I pulled up, and the guys looked at me at the gate, and he said, do you have the chips? And I go, yeah. And he said, go to the ramp back over there. And I went around the corner. He's on his radio. I didn't even get the van turned around, or the forklift. And it's like, that never happens. Usually there's a big delay between, getting there and getting it unloaded. Now, here comes the forklift, and I open the doors, and he signs off the paperwork, and the guy says, we are 40 minutes from shutting the factory down waiting on this. That's how close it was. He goes, you're going to keep us in business today. And I was like, damn, because I can't move forward at that point. Whoa. So they were happy I got there early. Which, if you're out here expediting, they give you a time frame. There are some businesses, it's rare, but some places that have a very specific pickup and drop-off time. And then you have most places that just want it as fast as you can get it there, but here's the last second they want it. So If it says you're going to get there at noon and you get in the area at 7 o'clock, don't go goof off for the next 5 hours. Take your load and get it to the end user. And that also gets you back on the board for your next load. Because if you're just sitting there goofing off, a load may have come and gone while you're not there. Not on the board, you're not active. And you can't see if there's anything on the board until you unload what you have. Ooh, 60 degrees outside. Perfect sleeping weather. I don't recall all this construction going on in this area, because this has been going on for quite a long time. I have not yet figured out how to play music and film at the same time off my phone. I have messed with it, I have Googled it, I have tried every trick in the book, and it doesn't seem to want to do it, so I have to possibly get a second phone that has my satellite, my Sirius on it, and maybe have two phones going at the same time. Maybe. Ooh, am I passing? I'm passing. Woohoo! I'm not even going that fast. Hold on. Is that a way station? Yes, it is. It scales. Alright, back over. Okie dokie. Watch this guy, watch this guy. Yeah, they got a lot of freaking road construction going on. I'm kind of bummed here. I'm used to being out in the middle of nowhere all by myself late at night. It's not working that way right now. I've got traffic all over the place. Because I get to use my high beams and everything. This isn't fair. I'm going to have to get my mother involved. Yes, all the gas in this state is over $3 a gallon. The further south you get, the cheaper it gets. What's that say? 323? 329? 3 something? 323. Blah. I hear you. I'm at 10. Oh, what did that say? 10:35. Oh. I scraped the bugs off at the gas station, but I gotta get the lines off. There we go. I-57 south in southern Illinois. My ultimate destination is Laredo, which is, more than 1,000 miles from here. So I am going as far as my body will let me go tonight. And then I'm going to sleep, and then I got a marathon Sunday. And I got to deliver at 7 o'clock in the morning in Laredo. And one advantage of this being on the weekend is I don't have to deal with rush hour. Any of these major cities. And I surprisingly got through Chicago without getting my rear end handed to me in traffic, which that area is always backed up. But for some reason today it just flowed. It was nice. It says right lane closed. Oh, correction, left lane closed. That's Highway 24 with vehicles crossing over right there in front of us. Or Interstate 24, excuse me. Nobody sneaking up on me, cool. Oh, here we go. Alright. They got the entire other side of the highway shut down. So everybody's pinched off here. I know. Who's with me? I got one person on here. Is it the unknown? making his presence known. And high beams. Woohoo! Sometimes when you drive on the interstate and they're doing construction like this during the day, it is stop and go traffic all the way through here. I've done that before and it blows. Memphis, 203, 41 miles to Cairo. I don't know what state that's in. I'm hoping it's Kentucky. Tired of being in Illinois. Everything in Illinois is overpriced. If you ever watch the sides of the roads at night, you'll see deer sitting there eating shrubs. And those stupid deer whistle things you can put on your car do nothing. They don't even pay the slightest bit of attention to them. Like I said, I got one person on here right now. Who is this? Hi, Beeps. One of the many things I like about the Ford Transit is it has big old bucket headlights. There was if you leave Chicago and follow the lake up into Michigan, one of the first towns you'll find across the border is called New Buffalo. It's a cute little town on the water with little boutiques and really expensive real estate, filthy rich people walking around in spandex, and it's just a really nice town. And there was a shop selling like summer themed clothes for the area, and I walked by it and I just kind of looked through the window like, yeah, whatever. And as on the way back, as I walked by, the guy stepped outside and put a sign up that said half off everything in the store. And I stopped and I looked and I went, really? And he goes, yeah, it's the end of summer, I gotta thin this out. I was like, okay. So I came in. His prices were pretty decent. They weren't like ridiculously expensive. And then you knock it in half, and I found a combination outfit for my wife, and I'm excited to show it to her. You know, it kind of weirds people out, but I buy most of my wife's clothes because I know what she likes. And I can look at stuff and decide, yes, she likes this, no, she doesn't like that. So I bought an outfit there that was actually in the clearance section, ironically, and then it was half off that, so it was really inexpensive. But I just thought it was kind of nice, and I'm kind of excited for her to see what I found for her. I did a load to Roswell, New Mexico, you know, where the aliens hang out, and it was a gear, like a 10-foot long gear. I don't know what it was for. But when I got done unloading it, I asked the guy, where's all the alien stuff? And he pointed, the alien touristy stuff, and he points. And there's a store that sells, you know, that's the only thing the town's got going for it, you know, UFO things. And he pointed, and I went under there and found all kinds of fun stuff. And I bought my wife a mug, a drink mug, aluminum, not plastic, and some stuff, a shirt. And then on the way out the door, there was a display, like a dummy, and it had on a pair of knee socks that had, you know, the green alien face with the big eyes. That was the all over the socks. It had those. Jeez, dude. And my wife wears those things religiously every chance she gets. They're completely obnoxious, just like my wife. Yes, I'm going to say officially it is much better to go through these single lanes on the interstate at night. Because I would be stopping and going right now if I wasn't in traffic. And now it seems like suddenly it thinned out. Oh, everybody got off on 24 back there. That's what happened. Yeah, there's like nobody behind me. And there's cars, I don't know, a mile up there. You can't see them. The taillights are like a mile ahead of me. So everybody got off on Highway 24 going back to the east. one more. Ooh, high beams. I like it, the high beams. Come back. Make your ass go numb. Jeez. I got fuel 57 miles to go, and I'm getting 22.6 miles per gallon. And that's hauling a 1,000-pound payload in here. I wonder where I would be right now if I got that load this morning, as opposed to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I'd probably be in Texas right now. That would have been nice. In case you're just jumping in, this is I-57 southbound in southern Illinois. I'm trying to get to Memphis, at least to Memphis tonight, which is about 200 more miles, and I've driven close to 500. But I didn't get to start the drive till 3 o'clock in the afternoon, because that's when the load was ready, which is frustrating. And up we go. What's that say? Memphis. Memphis 195, Cairo 33. I don't know what state Cairo's in. A long time ago, I told the story of a guy I worked with when I was a teenager by the name of Loopy. Loopy was, I guess, in his 70s at the time. And he went to school in, I want to say, Georgia, back in the 1930s. He was in elementary school. And I was working with him at a mall. It was a really tiny mall. He was a maintenance guy, and I was kind of his helper / sidekick. And he said in the late 1930s, he's in elementary school, 5th or 6th grade, and every year they had like a memorial / parade in the town commemorating the Civil War, which ended in 1865, and here it is, 1935, for instance, whatever year it was. And what would happen is there was apparently some major battle that happened right in the neighborhood, right down the street somewhere, that the local yokels took part in. And all the kids in 6th grade, they would pick 2 or 3 kids would have to get up on stage or on the town square and tell the story of what their great grandfather did, or their grandfather, whoever it was, and what their part in the battle was, and their view of it. For some reason, everybody's grandpa or great grandpa was a general or a colonel or somebody really important. They were like the hub, the most important person. So this is the only thing this town had to brag about. Well, one year, another kid came to class. It was a girl, and she was from Illinois or New York or something, so she wasn't a local. And just for giggles, they asked her, whoa, get out of the road. Skunk, just about got him. They asked her, because the unit they fought was from New York apparently, and she says, as a matter of fact, they were. So they said, all right, let's mix it up. Let's have her tell the story from the other side. So she contacted family back in New York, and a bunch of notes went around, and they talked about this and they talked about that. And this girl got up on stage after year after year after year of hearing this great war story about how Grandpa so-and-so was the leader of the charge that won the battle and blah, blah, blah. This girl gets up there and said, I contacted my family who put me in contact, and they got the notes. And the unit that was there that went up against the local unit, there was an engagement in that town, but it was at the very tail end of the war. And what happened was they were kind of faced off at each other, but the war was going to end their way, and they kind of, one person from each side kind of met in the middle, and they said, us coming out here and killing each other is not going to have the slightest outcome on the not fight off, and they kind of all agreed to it. And then somebody broke out the whiskey barrels, and then they shot a couple of cows, and they had a barbecue, and everybody got schnookered. And then the next day they woke up and they said, okay, what are we going to tell our families? And they said, all right, the guy's going south, you go tell your kin that you kicked ass and took names. We'll go back north and we'll tell our family we kicked ass and took names. So that was the end of the memorial about the great battle of whatever the hell town he was in. He goes, because next year I was in 6th grade and they didn't want to hear about it anymore. This girl finally exposed the fact that the battle was nothing more than an excuse to get drunk and have a barbecue, apparently. But everybody had a story to tell. I'm easy to entertain. I was on here earlier tonight, and I like to listen to documentaries going down the road. I'm a big World War II buff. And I used to chase my veterans, my World War II vets around and drive them crazy to get information from them. But that crowd is pretty much gone. There were 16 million people that served in World War II in the United States. And as of the last time I checked, there was like 60,000 left. And I would imagine most of them are probably not coherent. So there's really nobody to talk to anymore. But I used to beat up the veterans for information and, kind of like war stories, but just things like that. And I had a neighbor, at the time, he fought in the German army on the Eastern Front against the Russians. And when I was 13 years old, I used to drive that man batty. He was in his 50s. I didn't have the couth to understand that maybe he didn't want to talk about that stuff. But in hindsight, I think I was probably the only person that ever asked him. One of the things he told me, and it plays into what I was listening to on YouTube here earlier today, the United States kept the Soviet Union in World War II, and the Soviets, even though they spent 40 years denying it, once the Soviet Union fell, all the records came out, the documents and the memoirs and whatnot came out. They even admitted they would have got knocked out by the Germans had we not propped them up with Lend-Lease supplies. And their entire army was basically on foot. And I didn't know the numbers, but we provided them with fuel, ammunition, food, uniforms, some combat vehicles, not many, some aircraft. But between deuce and a half trucks and jeeps, we provided them with 427,000 vehicles, which were wildly better than the very limited number of vehicles they had that were mechanical garbage. And you watch the old World War II documentaries, they show the artillery blasting away. Every one of those artillery pieces was towed by a deuce and a half, an American-made Dodge or Studebaker, Chevy, Ford, whatever. And they were reliable because their equipment was primitive. Their trucks had cast iron pistons versus aluminum. Their brakes were mechanical, meaning it was nothing. It was like bicycle brakes. It was just strength. And the American vehicles had air brakes and more modern four-wheel drive. Plus, you get the steering wheels to drive, and they came with a tool kit. And they always—I was thinking about a deuce and a half. They are ergonomically horrible. They are ugly, but they always run. They always start. And they always run. It's got a straight 6 in it, cylinder engine, 90 horse, but it's got enough torque to climb a tree. And they also came with their own built-in winch to pull themselves out of a ditch in case they got stuck. And the Russians and the Soviets were just taken off guard by the quality. And they required almost no maintenance, whereas their vehicles, the Soviet ZIL, was a hunk of junk. And if you thought about loading it to its capacity, it would just break the vehicle. So they loaded half loads, whereas the deuce and a half, designed to carry 2,500 pounds, or no, 2.5 tons. Yeah, is that a 5,000 pounds. They put 10,000 pounds in it, and it would haul it. So it was their prime mover. It got their whole army moving. It moved all their supplies up. It really kept them more, and they admitted to it only after the Soviet Union went out of business because they didn't want to act like we had anything to do with it. But they said, yeah, the Germans would have knocked them out over that. I like those. I like the vehicle. My connection to a World War II deuce and a half is when I enlisted in the Army in '86, I crewed tanks. And we had deuce and a halves in our motor pool. I have no idea how old they were. I mean, you never see a new one. They're always old. But one of them had a 1944 manufacture date on it. So it was a 42-year-old vehicle in our motor pool. And nobody wanted to drive it. Nobody wanted to use it because, that's the old one. I liked it. It looked different. The headlights were different. The front end was different. So the only deuce and a half I ever drove the whole time I was in that unit, the 2nd Armored Division, was that old one. And I would always take it out on runs when I would use it. It was almost my vehicle because I appreciated the history behind it. And it ran. 42-year-old, probably not well taken care of deuce and a half. And like I said, no matter what happens, it would always start, it would always run. They're only designed to go about 45 miles an hour. They're not designed for like highway speeds and stuff. Let's see, 47 miles. The deuce and a halves are still around. There's some other cargo vehicle. It's got 8 wheels on it. 2 sets in the front, 2 sets in the back. I can't remember what they're called anymore. Wow, it's been so long. But that was kind of like the new cargo vehicle. But again, I can't remember what it's called anymore. But the deuce and a half will be around for a few more generations at least. See, apparently back there where the highway broke off and Highway 24 hit, all the traffic disappeared. Because look at this. We're back here on our own. I like it. Memphis 184. Tall wheels. He's gone. There we go. My wife bought a Catio. She hasn't built it, which means I'm probably going to build it. A Catio is an outdoor cage. You put it like a doggy door, but it's a kitty door, and the cat can go out the door into a tube and work its way into this outdoor cage, so the cat can get out of the house but be protected. The cat won't wander off, but the cat's also protected from, predators and whatnot. But this allows them to go outside, enjoy the air, and enjoy the day without you having to take them outside and keep an eye on them, because we have indoor cats. Left lane closed ahead. Okie dokie deal. I'm kind of curious how this is going to work. We have a courtyard. We have a townhouse, and out back there's a courtyard, which is a pretty good setup for doing this. Hold on, and high beams. Yeah, I like the headlights on this thing. Yeah, that skunk back there, I almost ran over. If I'd have hit that, that would have been catastrophic. Smell-wise, that is. Just branch off to the right. Good deal, good deal. Alright. So now the highway split, so I don't have to worry about anybody coming head-on with me. Wide open roads. Yeah, when you drive a full-size truck, you have CDL rules. I believe they have a 14-hour work day, and they can drive for 11 hours, and that's it. And it's not like you could cheat. It used to be in the old days they had paper log books, and you had to fill out the times of when you were driving and when you were not, and when you were in your sleeper, and blah, 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 blah. And people just made it up as they went along. Well, they changed it. Now it's electronic. And if your vehicle is moving over 5 miles an hour, they know it. And when your clock runs out, about 11 hours of driving in that 14-hour window, you can't drive anymore. So that's why you see the truck stops fill up really fast. The rest areas fill up, and if you watch, you come into a rest area on the highway, there's all these signs that says no parking, and it's like a whole bunch of them coming and going. The trucks have to park there. They don't have a choice because they can't drive. It's not like the highway patrol can come up and say, you have to move. Legally, they can't. So you're always fighting that trying to get parking, which is a mild pain in the ass, trying to find somewhere to park at night and dealing with the times. That's why I like doing this, because this is like driving a car. I can park it anywhere. Like I said, I take it home. And that's the advantage of this, is there's not a duty time. I don't have logbooks, electronic or otherwise, because I don't operate under the same set of rules. So if you're thinking about coming out here and trying to be a driver, this is called Expediting, but if you want to be a driver, like a truck driver, try this. See if you like being out on the road, because there are people that you don't know until you try. There was a kid here 6 months ago, was making videos on the U of Tube, younger guy, he was in his, early 20s, and he decided he wanted to be an expediter. Just like this, and he went out and dropped some bank on the Mercedes van, bought a brand new one. Remember, it was brown, it was beautiful. And he watched videos and found out how to outfit it, how to set the interior up. And he had it with the folding bunk and a pop-down TV and a fridge and a microwave, a disco ball and a stripper pole. I don't know, he had everything in it. He did it professional, did it right, and it was perfect. And he starts making about, what. And he makes the video and he goes, I don't really like being out here on the road. I want to go home, be with my girlfriend. I got to sell the van. I'm thinking, you just dropped, good God almighty, the big Mercedes, the 4-pallet Mercedes. This guy probably dropped 70 grand on this thing. And you have it for 3-4 weeks and you want to sell it. I mean, that's the dictionary definition of lose your ass. But that's why I'm saying, if you want to find out if you want to do this, go be a fleet driver. Go drive somebody else's van. If you don't make as much money, but you get to stick your finger in the pie, stick your toe in the pool, you kind of try it out. Make sure you want to do this before you start dropping money on it. And I did this previously, like I said, during COVID, so I've tried this out, and this isn't the premium job of a life, but it's a job and it generates revenue and it's something to do. And I don't mind being on the road, because as a pilot, I stayed away from the house a lot. go to work and be gone for weeks at a time. It's just the nature of flying. So this is just an offshoot of that. Let me give this guy a little bit of room. I imagine that dude sitting right there probably ran out of time. Right about there. So if you have any thoughts about coming out here, find a company, an expediting company, and tell them you're interested in being a fleet driver. Getting the job is fairly easy. The company I was with, it was a half-day orientation of how they like things done. They give you a piss test. They run a background on your license. If you've got, a DWI, DUI or something, that may get in the way. I don't know. But they do check your license, and they do a drug test. They don't want people running around because you're running loaded on their insurance. So they're kind of picky about that. And I imagine all the companies are about the same. And as far as who to work for, there's really not that much of a difference. I think a bigger company is better because they're more established and they have a bigger customer base. But as far as this company over that company, honestly, it's pretty much the same. It's like aviation. When I flew out in the Gulf, somebody's flying for Company A, Company B, Company C. It's all the same garbage in a different uniform. Guys would say, oh, I want to fly for so-and-so because they do fill in the blank better, or faster, or sexier, whatever you want to say. But that's not, there's 10 things the one company behind you used to work for they do differently that you took for granted. So it's all the same. Why do they gotta keep dropping the speed limits down so far? There we go. This is supposed to be 45 and I'm going 54, so I have the same numbers involved. I mean, the truck's coming up on me. I'll bump it up. 22.2. Whew. I hear you. I'm going to go another minute or two here and I'm going to bail off. I'm doing this for an hour at a time. And I got to come up with a plan here to stay awake. Oh my God. All right, I got 2 people left. I'm ready to bail off. Do you have any questions, comments? Overriding concerns. Favorite brand of peanut butter? Shoe size? Would you like to recite a poem? Nothing, huh? I hear you. There we go. No questions, no comments. Yeah, I got these guys behind me chomping the bit. I'm currently going 15 over. Oh my God. Is this about to end? No, yes, no, yes, no. Damn. Wait a minute. Did it? Looks like it ended. Ha-ha! All right. Okay, I'm officially bailing off here. I got to come up with a plan. Take care.